My name is Dyal, and I want to welcome you to the Scuba Diving channel. This channel is for anybody that is aquatically inclined or just aquatically curious. Kris Shannon comes to us from the training department at NAUI. He's responsible for a lot of the training programs going on there. It's one of the larger scuba agencies out there. He talks about being a good instructor. He gives us some great data, just a lot to learn here if you're on the training side. If you're an instructor, a dive master, you're thinking about doing it, lots of insight here. So I think you'll enjoy it. Kris Shannon, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You are in the training department?
So I work in the training department at NAUI Worldwide, or National Association of Underwater Instructors. I'm kind of the number 2 guy there. I'm a senior training representative, so I do everything from textbook and curriculum development down to daily member questions. I also sit on the Rebreather Training Council for NAUI, and then I also sit on the World Recreational Scuba Training Council that kind of sets the industry standards. That's one of the big things that kind of people don't think about. They think, every agency, PADI, NAUI, SDI, SSI, that they're all out coming up with their own standards, and that's actually not entirely true. We do have a core set of minimums that we all adhere to, and then there's some nuances inside of that. So no matter what agency you're getting, the minimum that you're being trained to is actually all the same.
I think that almost underscores what we've talked about in the past and what we've heard, other people say is do your homework on who is going to be teaching you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end
what
of the day,
program
yeah,
is.
Exactly. It's that instructor that you're going to be working with is going to determine how your class goes and what your learning experience is. Every agency is a little bit different in the way that their program is packaged. Some are a little bit more turnkey, kind of play the video, and that's going to be all of your stuff. And others, I know NAUI is this way for sure. We have a little more academic freedom. We empower that instructor to make those decisions about whether they want to use e-learning, whether they want to do it face-to-face, whether they want to do a very hands-on approach. That is where I think that you would find a difference in those agencies, but ultimately at the end of the day, the skill sets and minimum standards are still the same. It's really that personal connection that you need to look for, not necessarily agency shop, especially at the lower levels. I have friends in every agency, and it's just, end of the day, it's the people.
So you're not always at the desk?
Not always at the desk. I can talk to you all day about concepts and ideas and learning, but it's a lot easier to just get you out there and let you experience it and show it. I'm big for the hands-on learning experience. Even with students that I teach, I go for the approach of, I'm going to make sure that you're safe, but I'm going to let the environment teach you. If that wave's going to toss you around after we talked about keeping your mask on and keeping your feet planted, and then if that wave's going to come, I'm going to let it toss you around. I'll make sure that you're safe while that happens, but at the end of the day, that's a learning experience for you.
What to you defines a successful instructor?
An individual diver should know when to say no and when to call a dive. They shouldn't depend on professionals for that. And I think for me, that's what I look for as an instructor that produces those individuals that are just in-water animals, and they love it, they're having a good time, but they also have that safety aspect there. And those are the folks that you find coming back for continuing education and really staying in the sport.
Why do you think most shops struggle financially?
Sometimes what you find is that your dive shop owners, they thought they'd buy a dive shop because they liked diving and it was fun, and kind of forget about the business aspect of it. And at the end of the day, it's a business, and your business model is essential. The other thing that I'd say on that is they focus too much on open water and not enough on continuing education, which kind of links back to what I was saying before of, at the end of the day, your instructors should be producing in-water animals that love this sport, that are comfortable, that are confident that they're going to come back and do it again, and that's where those shops would be able to sell them those continuing education things.
What do you think that shops could do today, start doing, to get more continuing education classes?
I think at the open water level, they start focusing on giving those people the opportunity to be comfortable in the environment and not so much worrying about the bottom dollar and the end of the line. I think that we're, as an industry, on a sudden race to the bottom of who can get the lowest prices, who can, produce students the fastest, and fast isn't always good. Scheduling trips that might demand that advanced certification and say, hey, we're going to run an advanced course prior to this trip, or a cavern course prior to this trip, so that when you get down to Mexico, you can go and see those cenotes and you're going to have the skill sets to be safe.
Yeah, and these aren't upsells. These aren't, side of fries.
It falls back to data analysis that, was way back in the 1960s. And what the data showed was that your open water scuba divers were actually getting a 50% higher incident and injury rate than those that had completed additional dives. So right now, your requirement at minimum is 4 dives for an open water course. That advanced course was created because if you got over 6 dives, is what the data analysis showed, that incident rate dropped off by 50%.
Wow.
So that's really substantial. And I think that goes to show the whole water comfort and time in the water and the environment is so important to creating a safe diver. It's not just, can you do this once? It's, can you do it multiple times in the same fashion? What I encourage my students is to develop a pattern that's always the same pattern when you put together your gear, so that every time it's the same. And the more you do it, the more repetitions. It's muscle memory. It's thoughtless. I am a huge believer in checklists. I mean, it's good enough for NASA. It's good enough for pilots. We're doing the same thing they are. We were never meant to fly. We were never meant to breathe water. I use checklists when I pack my gear. I use checklists a lot of time before I get in the water. You go into the rebreather world, a checklist is imperative. We actually call it a pre-flight check or a pre-dive check. We adopted a lot of our training tactics for rebreathers actually straight from the FAA and those mentalities and how to execute stuff safely.
Cool. Love it. You mentioned trips. Trips say, hey, I want to go on this really fun trip. I need to be advanced. Is there something they could do that just seems to really get people to want to sign up?
The most successful shops that I've seen out there really focus hard on building a community. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just going underwater and doing the Vandy, but the adventure that you're having with those friends, the boat trip out, the trip down to the Keys.
A lot of people forget you're doing 2 dives. If you're lucky, an hour apiece, you're out for maybe 4 hours, right? You definitely at least have a day after because you got to wait to fly back. And then what about all the rest of that day? And I think that's where the ball gets dropped.
Those other things that you can do and build camaraderie as a team, fun in that adventure. I think that's what you've got to focus on.
Was there a specific decision you made somewhere along the way, or is there a habit that you have that you feel gives you an edge and got you there?
The exploration aspect, the going and seeing. I mean, it's a fact that gets thrown out there a lot. 70% of our planet is covered in water. That's something that not a lot of people have seen. And it's kind of our last frontier here on Earth. I think we have a lot to learn about our world by seeing. I think that's where I got hooked into it, is there's so much to see.
When you think back, is there something that really sort of sticks out as one of your favorite moments?
One was a cave dive that was into one of the deepest systems out there. It goes down to a little over 300 dive holder. It was reminiscent of just how small we are in this world. And so I think that is a memory. And the other one is a very close friend of mine. His kids, having recently watched the youngest, she just turned 10 and became certified, and we did her first true open water. Watching her hop off the back of that boat, I think, was the coolest thing, to see the next generation get into seeing the world underwater and being able to show her, the moray eels and the coral polyps that move in the water and all of those things.
What dive are you excited about that you haven't done yet?
I wouldn't even care what the dive is, but I have yet to see a hammerhead on a dive. I've seen hundreds of sharks over the years, but never a great hammerhead in the water, and a great white would be the other one. I mean, just to see those animals in their natural environment would just be so incredibly cool.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really good.
Good time, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Kris, Shannon, NAUI Training Department. If you want the full-length, uncensored interview, go to sweetwaterscuba.com.